Thank you for that update. Viewers, please make sure you've hit the like button. Make sure you're sharing the stream across your social media platforms. In relation to Arsenal, obviously, a lot of negative reaction yesterday to the news in relation to Madueke. I think it's a £52 million deal in totality. Some stating the base fee is around 40 million. I've not personally read any confirmation from any sort of credible sources on that. But Madueke is a, here we go, it's done. What's the latest in relation to Eze and Gyokeres? How close are they? Are either of them beginning to feel imminent at all? What's your understanding about those two deals, which I think Arsenal fans feel a little bit, some Arsenal fans feel a little desperate for now, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so with Noni Madueke, it all came about quite fast because the clubs have got a good relationship, and obviously Arsenal feel that he can be right-sided competition / cover for Bukayo Saka and can move over the left-hand side as well. And I would encourage Arsenal fans to look in particular at Noni Madueke in form in the first 10, 15 games of the season, because he can have a real input. He's got this sort of blessed dual talent of being a touchline hugging, defence stretching winger that can also cut inside very quickly and suddenly and very fast become a wide forward. And in the early part of the season, that was reflected in his goals output. So I actually think that the high ceiling of Noni Madueke makes this a really decent signing for Arsenal, especially when you consider what his role is likely to be at the football club. And then the overall fee is £52 million. I reported a few weeks back that 45 million guaranteed plus add-ons would likely stand a chance. And I think the overall deal is in or around that ballpark, somewhere between the 40 and 50 million mark in guaranteed, plus a little bit of add-ons on top. And it's a deal that suits all parties, really, because Chelsea are making a tidy profit on the 29 million paid, and Arsenal are moving decisively in the market. It's not a signing that's in place of Eberechi Eze. So with Eze, the expectation remains that an approach will be made to Crystal Palace. I'm not aware of anything imminent in terms of the next hours, but let's see what happens in the next few days, because these transfers, the Spurs showed with Morgan Gibbs-White, can move very quickly. And I don't expect Andrea Berta to hang around now. I think Arsenal want to do a significant portion of their summer business between now and, if possible, August the 1st, or certainly August the 9th. And therefore, we are going to see a lot of movement on both the number 9 and the attacking midfield position. And then if there is an outgoing, you never know, a left winger could come as well. We'll have to wait and see, because Madueke can move over to that left-hand side. But what I would say is Madueke much, much prefers the right-hand side. So just because Arsenal think he can switch sides, it doesn't mean that that's Madueke's preferred position. With Eze, I'm expecting a bid. Like I say, it was a story that we broke on this show and is now widely reported. And that is for attacking midfield, but again, with the ability to move over to that left-hand side. And it'll be interesting to see whether Crystal Palace show any flexibility, or they say release clause or nothing. But I am led to believe that Arsenal will approach Crystal Palace, not necessarily with a blind bid, but let's wait and see. It's possible, but certainly to formally discuss what is actually possible here. Is it release clause or nothing? Or are you open to having some kind of negotiation around it, or even potentially under it? And that's the next step in that story. Viktor Gyokeres is more imminent than Eze, and there is still some optimism on Arsenal's part, but it's not done yet. So Andrea Berta went over face-to-face talks. He held them up until the end of last weekend. And then there was a bid made for 65 million euros and around 15 million in add-ons, which Arsenal were relatively hopeful could get over the line. But there was no agreement after those face-to-face talks. And Sporting have since countered with 70 million euros plus 10 million in add-ons. And at the time we're live, let's see if it changes later today or in the coming hours, because Gyokeres is pushing and he's not turning up to pre-season. But as of now, there's been no third Arsenal bid for Viktor Gyokeres. And I say that very clearly as of now, because the window moves in so many mysterious ways, and Arsenal's optimism remains that it could change within a matter of minutes or hours. So Sporting are waiting for that third Arsenal bid. They're expecting that third Arsenal bid. But in a formal sense, the last bid was Sunday. So they're waiting. And if that bid's 70 plus 10, the Gyokeres deal will just be done. If the bid isn't 70 plus 10, they'll still have to have some more negotiations over the total amount and the structure. But they're not that far apart. Gyokeres is waiting. He's hoping that his strike, if you like, from pre-season football will help force the issue and quickly. And my expectation in all of this is that Andrea Berta is playing this extremely tactically. So people are saying, why is it not done? Why is there radio silence? Is the deal off? It isn't. But if you're Arsenal, why wouldn't you wait until today when Viktor Gyokeres is refusing to go back to pre-season training? Because in those days that pass, the price may drop, or Arsenal's deal may become suddenly more appealing to Sporting, because the next stage of this story is a player very publicly not showing up. And the longer he no-shows and the longer he's left in limbo, the more ascendancy in the deal Arsenal may have. So it could be that the delay, the radio silence, was all intended this week to allow Viktor Gyokeres to do his own push and go on his own strike to maybe help Arsenal get the best possible deal here. And that's kind of where we stand. So there is still an expectation that this deal can get done, will get done, but we need to wait for that third Arsenal bid, which at the time we're live anyway, hasn't yet come in.
Yeah, and look, I think there's a lot of... I haven't believed the stories that the deal's going to fall apart. I haven't personally believed the stories that they're going to walk away or anything like... I mean, there's always the possibility, and you know what it's like, especially as a journalist, you have to say it's a possibility, because if it does happen, people will say, oh, you didn't tell the truth. Like, someone actually DM'd me about you, going, oh, Ben Jacobs said that we were going to get Šeško. I'm like, that's not what he said. Ben Jacobs said that if both deals got to the value that Arsenal were happy with, his view is it would be Šeško, but he also stated if the Leipzig price didn't drop and Sporting's did, it would be Gyokeres. He's like, oh, I didn't hear that bit. It's like, yes, listen more. Listen to the detail, and maybe you won't be so frustrated. And I think a lot of fan base, I think a lot of football fans can... Listen, you're allowed to be angry. I'm not telling people how to feel. But sometimes people get angry because they haven't listened to the detail or they haven't read the article. And you must experience that quite a lot in this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's more just people hear one line, particularly when you broadcast, and then it's straight on social media without the context, which is the challenge of X in particular, because there's a limited number of characters. And you have to spell out where we're at the deal now, which is Viktor Gyokeres will not report for Sporting training, and Arsenal have a 5-year deal. And if you are Arsenal, why not wait until he doesn't report for pre-season training? Because you get another little thing in your favor in trying to get the package you're looking for. So I think Sporting felt like knowing he wouldn't report for pre-season training would give Arsenal urgency to get the deal over the line. And I think Berta was quite smart in many ways to just leave Sporting thinking, whether rightly or whether just a game, that this deal might have some doubt, coupled with the fact that the player no shows. And then when you return today, tomorrow, you're in a position where you might just get the deal that you're looking for. And it would not remotely surprise me if today, tomorrow, over the weekend, now we know that Gyokeres isn't there, and that causes a headline. Arsenal then choose to return with what would be their third bid, I believe, because they made a verbal one, a formal 65 plus 15 one. And when they come back with that third bid, they should be in a stronger position, because Sporting is seeing firsthand now that Gyokeres is following through on his threat, if you like, or pledge not to be part of pre-season training.
Yeah, look, I think they're right. I'm an advocate for clubs trying to get the deal done at the best price possible, because in the longer term, it leaves you... I found so ironic this summer is you have people demanding that their clubs move like Liverpool, one without realizing that if the same fan bases had Liverpool summer last year, they might have burnt their club down. So I just find it quite ironic, really. I wanted to ask you, because we're going to take calls a little bit later on the show, because Ben will be leaving us shortly. But what's the latest with Rodrygo? I know Arsenal are linked to him, but recently there's been reports of PSG, Liverpool, Manchester City's name has come up as well. Has there been any movement, as far as you're aware, about the potential exit, more so than the destination, but the exit of Rodrygo from Real Madrid?
No, it'll either be over the weekend or it'll be early next week. So as I revealed, Rodrygo was only going to speak about his future to Real Madrid after the Club World Cup. That's now finished. Naturally, players go on holiday start the contemplation process, and then Xabi Alonso and Rodrygo are going to have a meeting. And situation is basically, if Rodrygo has to leave, Real are prepared to sanction that exit. So it's all on the player. You could argue Real sent a message during the Club World Cup by benching Rodrygo for 5 straight games. He obviously wants to play on the left-hand side. Vinny Jr. and Mbappe are there. So there is a realistic chance Rodrygo leaves, but it's 100% on the player. Then Real would sanction an exit at 90 million. With Arsenal and Rodrygo, there would likely have to be a Gabriel Martinelli or Leandro Trossard departure for them to enter that race. So let's sort of wait and see whether they think that Eze, who could go left, even though if he joined, he'd be signed as a central player, and Madueke, who can be moved left, is actually seen as enough for Arsenal, plus a number 9. But there is a scenario where they consider Rodrygo. It would just require Gabriel Martinelli or Leandro Trossard to leave. And with Trossard, I'm told these links or this agreement with Fenerbahce is not the case. They're not pursuing Leandro Trossard. In fact, the player they want as another attacker is Marco Asensio, and that's very close. So we're going to have to wait and see what develops, because I don't see an Arsenal scenario where Rodrygo is bid for and Gabriel Martinelli and Leandro Trossard both stay. And if they do go down the line of Eze, then maybe Eze Madueke plus a number 9 is seen to be enough. But with Rodrygo, he'll be available to any club for about 90 million euros. Saudi really like Rodrygo, even though it's not true. Al Nassr are the club that made a move. It was actually Al Hilal 12 months ago that tried for Rodrygo, but nothing came of it. So let's see whether Saudi revisit the situation. It'd be a big surprise if Rodrygo chose to go to Saudi Arabia, but the interest there is concrete, even though no club at the moment in terms of active talks has made any kind of approach. So that's where we stand. It's all just on that meeting between Rodrygo and Xabi Alonso.
Makes a lot of sense there. It really, really does. Thank you, Luke, for the super chat. There's actually a few sources in Turkey right now saying that Trossard is actually in talks to extend his contract with Arsenal. That's what some Turkish sources are saying. So,
well, that's an old story. I mean, these talks with Trossard started 2 months ago to potentially extend by 2 years or 1 year with an option, and they were positive. And the feeling has always been that for crazy money, it might be Gabriel Martinelli that departs, and then you have a all or nothing situation really with both Martinelli and Trossard. I think we might have discussed it on the show before, where they're either both going to be extended or likely offers are going to be entertained. But I don't see a scenario where both of them just stay and another 12 months passes. So if they do stay at some point within the next 12 months, I would expect Arsenal to take steps to extend both of them if they're still at the club. I'd be surprised if there's a middle ground situation where one or both stay and there isn't a renewal, because Arsenal will either sell or look to extend them to keep them at the club, reward them, and ultimately protect their value.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. Ben, I know you've got a hard stop because you've got Club World Cup duties right now. Viewers, we're going to stay live. We're going to take your calls if you want to phone in and speak about anything that Ben has said. Give your opinions on the news from yesterday. It'll be the only, unless there's big breaking news, it'll be the only calling show of the day. So stay with us. We're going to stay live for the next half an hour or so. Ben, always a pleasure, mate, to sit and speak, and I'm sure we'll have another catch up next week. Are you back in the UK next week?
Yeah, back in the UK for the Club World Cup final on the 13th of July. So it's been a great tournament to cover. But looking forward to getting back on UK hours, because transfer windows are not easy when you're on the East or the West Coast. But always a pleasure, Terry. Keep up the good work.
Lovely. Speak again soon, mate. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Bye-bye.